Hi, everybody. I'm Olivia F. Scott, the Associate Professor of Advertising at Loyola University New Orleans, founder of Emerge Alliance's marketing consultancy, and the host of Behind the Ad, where we peel the layers of the media, advertising, and marketing onion back to demystify the industry for you. Today's discussion is about a key step in developing ad campaigns: media selection, also called media planning. Seasoned ad woman Emily Engberg is the advertising director at George's Media Group. She joins me today to share her expertise on how brands can choose the right advertising channels to maximize their marketing objectives. Join me, if you will, in joining Emily to Behind the Ad today.
Thank you so much for having me. Thrilled to be here.
Thank you. You are the ad woman of New Orleans. I know that to be true.
I strive all over the place these days.
I
It
know.
certainly keeps me on my toes with how things are ever evolving.
Tell us about George's Media Group, right? So,
Sure.
what's included in that?
Yes, so George's Media Group is the umbrella that falls over the Times-Picayune, NOLA.com, Gambit Weekly, Door Magazine, these days Arthur Hardy's Mardi Gras Guide. We also have papers in Baton Rouge and Lafayette, the Advocate and the Acadiana Advocate, and then we recently expanded into the Shreveport area with a digital-only newsroom, the Shreveport-Bossier Advocate.
Wonderful. It is happy. I'm excited to have a woman, right, who is working in media sales, because I've been in the industry for a long time. There are not a lot of us on the sales side. So kudos to you, and we're really happy to have you here Behind
Thank
the
you.
Ad.
Thank you.
All right, so the world of advertising has undeniably evolved and grown along with information technology since the Mad Men era of pre digital broadcast advertising and media. With so many different ways to reach their audiences now, how can brands really make sense of the abundance of options available for them to advertise via?
Yes, it is true that your options are evolving literally by the second. So, staying on top of the latest and greatest tech and opportunities can be a challenge and it can feel overwhelming. So, first and foremost, you need to identify what your goals are, what your opportunities are, and who your audience is. And you can work backwards from there to figure out which channels you can best reach that audience and accomplish those goals. There are plenty of resources out there these days to help you educate yourself. Google podcasts like this.
Right.
One of my favorites is Behind the Numbers. I listen to it just about every day. That takes more of a global look at marketing trends, which can certainly trickle down to New Orleans itself. Even TikTok creators these days can have pretty useful content to help you navigate that.
Right.
And then, of course, if your main focus is running your business day to day, you can always leverage companies and organizations like mine. We live and breathe marketing strategy and can help you navigate that entire process from defining your goals, figuring out who your audience is, and helping you reach that audience based upon the channels that are available to you and your budget.
So, what would you say to a business owner, whether it's small, middle size, or large, and they just feel they have to be everywhere, and they're splintering their budgets across television, radio, podcast, print? Do you have any advice or, just counsel for, I would say, let's go more for small businesses, small to middle-sized businesses, who you see all these different platforms, and we all know that the whole core of media planning is you want to be where your customer is, and you want to basically offer them a message where they are. Not disruptive, but offering an additive message where they are. So if your customers are on Pinterest, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, television, Netflix, Hulu, what would you tell a business owner around media planning? Should they try to be on all of them, or is it a flighted approach where they kind of stagger it?
You definitely do not want to cannibalize your own budget to the point where nothing you are doing is effective. So if you're a small business owner, you're going to want to be smart and targeted with your approach. So I would think about who exactly your audience is. Yes, maybe they're on Pinterest, Instagram, all these places, but there are probably certain platforms that they're utilizing more than others. And then also think about what the main objective of your marketing is. Is it just to create awareness? Are you just trying to create that brand recall? Or is it to drive specific actions? Are you trying to get them to click and buy something right then and there? the channels that you select are going to align with what those objectives are. You know, some are more top of funnel, others are going to be more catered to that bottom of the funnel intender who's actively searching for what it is that you offer. And I would select the channels based upon where that audience is primarily and what your objective is.
Okay, all right. So let's talk about varying executions to match the medium, right? So we always hear in advertising and marketing that you should change your message to match your media platform, especially in social. So Facebook copy should be different from Instagram, from NOLA.com. Like they should all be a little bit different. Mm-hmm. Do you agree with that?
I do agree with that. I think one thing to note, however, is you should make sure there is some overarching brand consistency across all the platforms. Mm-hmm. So if there is imagery accompanying it, making sure you are sticking to any branding guidelines. Is it a color palette? Are there certain fonts that you're always using? An overarching tone that you're trying to achieve? But yes, it's very important to cater to the platform and channel that you're running on. An ad that's going to perform well on TikTok is not going to perform well on Hulu. You know, you need to have the level of professionalism, polish, or informality to meet that platform and to blend in with the other content on that platform, and that's going to drive the best results.
Excellent. What does an ad campaign with well-selected media placement look like? Can you give us an example of an amazing campaign perhaps you did with one of your clients?
Sure. I personally think the best campaigns are full funnel campaigns, meaning they include tactics that follow that potential consumer throughout their entire journey, from awareness to consideration all the way down to action.
Will you break those down, though, the funnel, for people who don't know what the funnel is?
Sure. Awareness, so in the marketing funnel, you know, if you ultimately are trying to drive sales, your first goal is to make as many people as possible aware of who you are, your brand, and the products that you offer. Ultimately, not every single person is going to trickle down in that funnel and take an action. So it's important to follow as many of those folks that you initially reached throughout that journey so they can continue to consider you and your brand and your products. And then from there, ultimately, once you've created that brand affinity, the goal is that they'll decide to purchase from you rather than a competitor. So start with a larger number, cast a wider net, it'll narrow down, but ultimately you'll get the sales that you're hoping for.
Okay, very well. And then do you happen to, when you look at, like, I was going to ask a different question and come back. What about tracking KPIs? Like, one of the things with media that I think many people struggle with is there's an old saying, and I forgot which old legendary, I shouldn't say old, which pioneering advertising man said this back in the day. It was either a DDB or Burnett, one of those guys, when they said half of all advertising is wasted. We just don't know which half, right? And we talk about that. It's pretty legend in our industry. So in terms of KPIs, do you have any recommended KPIs people should consider outside of sales? Because I think the natural KPI that we're all looking for is, I didn't see a lift in sales, I'm going to cancel this ad campaign. But when you are trying to get your clients to stay on a little bit longer with you and give it more time, what other KPIs do you ask them to look for?
Sure. One of the things that we always strive to do from the very beginning is be very clear with setting expectations. Certain channels have different KPIs. Not all of them are direct sales, right? So in that,
let's tell them what KPIs are. I'm sorry, I mentioned
key performance indicators. So how you are measuring if a tactic is performing. Some have a more directly measurable ROI, return on investment. So like Google paid search, you can pretty clearly follow a strategy like that through to the sale. But not all of them work that way. So it's important to set expectations from the very beginning that, you know, if you are running a streaming video campaign, you're not going to be measuring success by clicks to your site. It's going to be about eyeballs, how many people you've exposed your brand to. Ultimately, you would hope to see a lift in overall website traffic. There are other little measures that you can take into consideration beyond just impressions served, clicks to site, but it's definitely important from the very beginning to outline by tactic what you can expect and what success looks like there. So at the end of the day, that advertiser doesn't go, well, you know, this billboard didn't generate sales for me. Because maybe it did, it wasn't a directly measurable tactic, so you need to make sure from the very beginning they understand that.
Do you believe in media they should all campaigns should include a call to action?
I think it depends on what the tactic is and what the objective is. We do see that mistake a lot when folks are running campaigns intended to drive some sort of action that are missing a call to action, and then they say, well, why am I not getting clicks? Why am I not getting phone calls?
Right.
But there are other types of marketing that are really intended more to just generate that brand affinity, in which case there may not be as direct of a call to action. Maybe it's a sponsored content story where you're crafting a narrative to create that brand recall in the future so people think of you when they are considering whatever service you offer.
Yep.
But for tactics that are intended to drive action, yes, a call to action is critical.
And I stopped to ask about the call to action because you mentioned the billboard.
Sure.
Right? And we talk a lot at Loyola in our classes about making sure when you're choosing your mediums, you are thinking about your objectives. And we all know if it's a billboard, there's no way you're going to actually have enough information to really drive sales. So when you're thinking about your objectives, if you're trying to drive sales, perhaps you're not looking at a billboard.
Right.
Perhaps it's really more used for awareness generating.
Yes, precisely.
Okay. All right. Could you share any common mistakes when it comes to media planning and placement?
Sure. Well, that call to action component is definitely a mistake we see all the time. Another mistake that I see all the time is businesses will say, I'm trying to reach a younger demographic. And then you put together a strategy that includes platforms like TikTok, Instagram, streaming video. And they say, I don't like any of those. I just want to do linear TV.
Ooh.
And you have to push back and challenge a little there to say, well, if your goal is to reach this audience, you have to think about not just the platforms that you personally like, but the platforms where they are consuming their content.
Correct.
So there can be that disconnect between what a business owner personally prefers and what would actually help them accomplish their goals. And it's very important to not make that mistake if you are trying to see, a positive outcome.
Fantastic. Any more mistakes you see? You've been doing this for a long time. You have a lot of clients you're dealing with. Any
Oh
other
my
mistakes
gosh.
that are really prevalent that you're like, people need to stop doing this?
Poor planning, last minute decisions rather than being proactive, reactive. There are a million different mistakes, depends upon the industry, but I would say the two biggest are not catering the messaging to the channel. So if there needs to be a call to action, making sure that's included, and then not using the appropriate channels for the audience that you're trying to reach.
Great. Couple more questions for you.
Sure.
What's the best practice in? So those are the mistakes, but then when you're looking at your clients who you see they are doing very well, they return, they are seeing the benefit of advertising with Georgia's
Sure.
Media Group, different platforms. What do you say? Are there any common threads with what's showing to be successful?
Sure. I mean, I'd say it's the inverse of those common mistakes. It's the individuals who take the time to develop short and long-term strategies that identify who their audiences are or who their opportunity audiences could be. They incorporate a strategy that will allow them to reach all of those individuals, and typically they'll scale those strategies up either with seasonality or as they continue to grow their business. If something was working this year, but the economic climate has changed next year, you can't do the same old thing, and it's making sure that you can adapt and evolve and keep your strategy fresh to allow you to accomplish whatever your current goal is.
Got it. And so my final question I have right now is really about money. I think that a lot of small business owners, they think that in order for them to run advertising that they have to have really big budgets. Can you share any insights into the truthfulness of that, or like just denying that, dispelling that?
Sure. I think there are varying spectrums. You certainly get out what you put in, so you can't spend $100 and expect the world.
Okay.
But you can also be very smart and intentional with your budget and stretch them much further than you would have been able to previously when we didn't have the targeting capabilities that we do now that allow you to reach niche audiences in very specific geographies. So there are ways to be smart with a limited budget and still help you accomplish your goal.
Speaking of which, the targeting, can you tell us a little bit more about that? Because that's a trend. That's something we could have a whole other conversation
Sure.
around. But can you give us some insights into how media planning and buying has changed with programmatic advertising and what's happening with being able to really target your audiences.
Sure. And of course, all of this is about to change when Google officially does away with cookies. But for now, we still have the ability to target people very granularly based upon all sorts of demographic and behavioral details. So, we can tell you if it's a male or female living in the New Orleans area with a household income of 100,000 plus with an interest in sports, you name it, we can get pretty granular with that targeting. People seem to be preparing for this cookieless future by shifting to contextual targeting strategies. So if somebody is reading content about sports, you can assume they have a sports interest, but we'll see what ultimately comes of that.
Okay.
If it even ultimately happens, they keep delaying that cookie deprecation deadline. But for now, the ability to target is unbelievable and allows you to certainly use those dollars smarter.
Wonderful. And so, Emily, if anybody wants to advertise, why would they call you? Like, what do you offer?
Sure.
That everybody would give, she's a very smart woman. Let me give her a call.
George's Media Group, when I first started with the company, people thought of us as just a newspaper. It was the Advocate New Orleans edition initially. Now we're the Times-Picayune. But these days, we are a full-service digital agency. I like to say we're in a Goldilocks situation. We're small enough that we can be nimble and make decisions quickly, but we're large enough that we've got all the tools in the toolkit that you could possibly need. So it makes us a great resource. We've got a team of experts who live and breathe this and can take some of the heavy lifting of marketing strategy, execution, and optimization off of your plate so you can focus on the day-to-day of running your business.
So if a client were to come to you, Emily, and say, I've got this new product I'm launching, fourth quarter for the holidays, I don't have an in-house marketing person, can you create the entire strategy and the plan for me? You'd be able to do that.
Absolutely. Strategy, plan, we can even help develop the creative, we do video production. We can do it all to take that off of your plate truly and make it as easy and turnkey as possible for you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Emily, for joining us today and enlightening us about the media planning process.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So for anybody who is thinking that media planning is something that you don't have access to, we encourage you to really consider the merit of sitting down and think about what your objectives are, look at the different platforms that are available to you, and really crafting a strong media plan that delivers against your audience and your goals. And if you simply, just way too much information for you and you're like, I want to do it, give Emily a call. She's an incredible ad saleswoman who will definitely take care of you in the New Orleans and surrounding area. Thanks so much for joining us today on Behind the Ad. We'll see you soon.